All right, Tim Blanchard here with divorce661.com. And in this episode, we're talking about the 6 ways to serve divorce papers. We're going to talk about the different ways that this can be done and different times, excuse me, different times you're going to want to do them. There's a reason you'd want to use one versus the other in different circumstances. So let's talk about the first way that you probably are familiar with as far as how you can serve your divorce documents. And the first way is going to be just by personal service. Now, I just brought up a copy of the proof of service of summons. This is what needs to be filed, regardless of what direction you go as far as how you're served. You're going to be completing one of these and then indicating how they were actually served. So, what we're talking about here is proof of service and being personally served. So, what does that mean to be personally served? First of all, we have to note here, if you look at the top, it says that at the time of service, and this will be the person signing this, I was at least 18 years of age and not a party to this action. So what does that mean to you? It means you cannot be, if you're the party who filed for divorce, you cannot be the one serving the paperwork. You can't. You can prepare this form, you can fill it out, but the person who physically served the other party is the one who's going to sign this and whose information is going to appear on this form. So just keep that in mind. This goes for any type of service we're going to talk about today. You cannot be the person serving if you are part of the action. So we're talking about you are the person who filed for divorce. So personal service. Who could you use for this? You could use a friend, a neighbor. You know, if you guys are amicable, if you don't want to get someone involved, you could hire a process server. That's a professional person who you would pay to actually serve the documents. Now, in our business, and I skipped over talking about what we do. We do provide a full service divorce solution for amicable clients going through divorce anywhere in California. We never are required or needing to use personal service. It's not required. It's not the best way to go when you're trying to go through an amicable divorce. So what I'm referring to is there are other options. I probably will just skip to the next way that we recommend, and I'm not going to go in order as far as the proof of service form. But we feel that when you are amicable and going through an amicable divorce, why do you want to have your spouse personally served? Now, it may not be a big deal to you if you have, an adult friend, neighbor, someone who is not going to offend the other party, and you want to serve. Just say, hey, can you give this to my spouse? And they're going to sign the proof of service, and that's not going to irritate your spouse. Then sure, that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. What we're trying to prevent is, in our amicable cases, is someone going out being served at home or office or wherever you work, and then that causing some upset. So what we use in all of our cases is what's called a notice of acknowledgement of receipt. So all this means is that we are mailing the summons and petition to the respondent for them to then sign, acknowledging they've received a copy. So with personal service, and you're served personally, the person serving is signing the proof of service saying, I personally handed these papers to the respondent. Whereas with the notice and acknowledgement, the respondent is actually signing saying, I did receive these documents. Now, again, so you can see here that, the person mailing, the date they mailed it, sign what's being served. So it's very similar to the proof of service, but at the bottom, the respondent's going to sign this, return it to the filing party, to the petitioner, and then you will go back and you will file the proof of service with the attached notice and acknowledgement. And I'll show you here on page 2 of the proof of service, you're going to indicate this different way. So whereas if you did personal service, you're going to mark the personal service box here, date and time, and address. Obviously, you're still going to fill this out and what was served. But if it is by notice and acknowledgement, you're still going to put the address and what was served. You're just going to skip the personal service section and the substituted service section, which we'll talk about next. And you're going to complete and indicate that it was through notice of acknowledgement, the date you mailed it out, and from what location, along with 2 copies of the notice and acknowledgement. Again, person who served cannot be the person who filed the case. Address, phone number, you declare under penalty of perjury, date, sign. So that's how that would get completed. We use this exclusively at divorce661.com because it's a simple way of having the respondent sign and not have to be physically served. Whenever we have our consultations, almost every consultation, whether it's the person filing or the respondent, sometimes we're talking to both on the consultation, their concern is, okay, when am I going to get served? And they are always happy to know that neither party is going to be served officially, as in personal service. It's going to be by notice and acknowledgement. So definitely a good way to go. And you can still use the neighbor, the friend, or someone like that to send this out. It just needs to be sent from someone else. And the good thing about working with us, if you do hire us, we are that neutral third party that will be signing these forms for you, so you don't have to go somewhere else and get someone else to do this for you. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is these different options. And again, personal service and the notice and acknowledgement is going to be your best bet. In all of our amicable cases, again, notice of acknowledgement, if you have to, personal service, but and a lot of people are doing the personal service because they don't know that there's another alternate way, which we enjoy doing, which is the notice and acknowledgement. Now, other options are what's known as substituted service. You can see here in section 3. Now, this comes with a caveat. The first two ways I've told you, personal service and notice and acknowledgement, that is what you're going to want to strive for. Everything else I'm going to talk about here is going to be an alternative. It's not going to be your best bet. And in many cases, there are reasons the court could find it to be invalid proof of service. So what it says with the substituted service is that I left the copies with or in the presence of so-and-so who, what is the relationship? Roommate, parent, brother, that sort of thing. And was it left in a business or a home? What date and time? So the issue with this is the server is not serving the actual party. They're it's called subservice or substitute service. They're serving somebody else. And the courts this is an option, but they will make it very challenging for this to be accepted. So if you notice at the bottom says a declaration of due diligence is attached. So what this means is you cannot just show up, let's say you had to hire a process server, and these are in cases that are a little bit more challenging to be served. Maybe they're trying to avoid service, something like that. Again, we're not dealing with that because we're only working with amicable couples. But let's assume that that's the case, and you send a server out, and they go out to the house, and let's say there's a family member there. They can't just serve that first attempt on someone other than the person being served, because in that declaration of due diligence, you have to explain, or not you, the person serving, what steps you took previously to that before you just substituted the service to someone else. What this generally means is the server is going to have to make 2, 3, maybe 4 different attempts at serving them personally, because that is the criteria. So they're going to have to show up maybe once in the morning. Okay, they're not there. The vehicle wasn't there. Maybe they go back another day in the evening to show that there are different time attempts. But when these were attempted to be served, if that doesn't work, they may have to go to the employer of the person being served and attempt there and see if that works. So there has to be multiple attempts, and then those attempts indicated in a declaration of due diligence to say, we went on these following days at these different times, and this was the result. They weren't found, and for that reason, we did a substituted service on respondent's brother. And you check off those boxes on the proof of service to indicate that. So you can't just go out. I'm going to give you guys a good website to find a process server if that's what you need. It'll be the last kind of slide that I show you. But that's why you're going to want to hire a professional process server, because if they're not going to know. They're just going to go serve someone. They probably won't do the declaration of due diligence, and you can't file the proof of service without it. It will cause your proof of service to be rejected. So just keep that in mind. So going back to this, so we've covered substituted service and how that works. And again, it's not the greatest idea, but it is kind of a last resort. And there is even more of a last resort. And what I want to talk about here is the publication or posting process. So let me bring this up. So the reason I want to talk about this at length, at least for a few minutes, is because we get people who call and they say, oh yeah, we're amicable, but my spouse doesn't want to participate. They don't want to be served. So we just want to do the publication or the posting route. Publication means you don't know where your spouse is, and you're going to put the fact that the divorce has been filed, and there's a bunch of criteria that goes along with that. And I'll go over some of those ways that you have to do that. But essentially, this is a last resort because it is very challenging to get the court to approve you actually doing the publication. So it's not something you just elect to do. You can't say, you know what, I'm not going to do personal service. I'm not going to do notice of acknowledgement. I don't want them to really know the divorce is going through, which sometimes is the case. I just want to do the publication or the posting. Well, here's the issue with that. You need to get the court's permission to do that. You can't just do the publication or posting until the court gives permission. And this is the form you have to file. It's the application for order for publication or posting. So what I'm going to talk about first, the posting. Don't even attempt to do the posting. We've had people attempt that. We don't do this because and I'll explain why. They make it so difficult to get this approved. By the time you take the steps the court requires you to do before they approve the publication or posting, you're going to find your spouse, unless they're not alive. The posting, someone went through this before they hired us, and they basically said posting is not something we do anymore. There isn't even a wall that the posting would happen on. There used to be a clipboard back in the day in the various courthouses where you could do the postings. And the idea is that supposedly that person's going to walk into the courthouse and notice, oh, my God, they filed for divorce. There it is on the wall. It's not likely that they're going to be served and know about the divorce, and the court knows that. So this is why they don't like these postings or publications to be allowed unless you've gone through these extensive steps to attempt to locate your spouse. So before you can do that, you have to fill out this application. So what you would do is you'd file for divorce. You would get your case number issued, and just like you would before you would do any other type of service. Then you would say, okay, here's our case number, and I'm filing this application with the court for publication. And then you have to go through the form and fill out what are the reasons that you are unable to locate your spouse. Tell us what you did. Here's my request. Petitioner requests that the court issue an order directing service of the sums to be listed in a newspaper, et cetera, et cetera. What's to be served, summons and petition. And then you have to give the steps. I have taken the following steps to try and find the respondent. And you have to give an exhaustive list of reasons or what you did to attempt to locate your spouse, and then let the court know that. Then they will receive this, and then they will decide if they thought you did enough to locate your spouse. And here's what they're looking at as far as reasons to reject your request for publication. Number one, provide additional facts and evidence to show that the publication could not be fulfilled. You have attained, look for a license, look for a valid address, attempt personal service at different locations. They have so many different reasons here. Search the phone book, contact friends, relatives, neighbors. So they're going to go through this, and this is the reason the publications are so difficult to go through, because if you actually do all of these steps, you're going to find your spouse. So this is not something we recommend. I maybe did one of these 10 years ago, but what I tell clients to call and talk about the publication process, or they want to do that as a first step, I explain to them how difficult it is to get these through and to not even attempt it, to start going down this path of these actions you're going to have to take anyways, and you're going to find your spouse. It's just that's why the court makes this so difficult, because they know if it's done through publication, you're not going to actually see that in the paper. No one's looking at the classified or the back of the newspaper to see if their spouse is filed for divorce. So they know the spouse is not going to be notified. So they're going to make it very difficult to get this through. And again, always as a last resort. So we've kind of talked about how challenging and difficult this is to get these through and how you're going to find your spouse. So just keep that in mind. If you are thinking of filing for divorce, you might as well start, and you don't know where your spouse is, you might as well start doing these investigations, because you're going to have to do them anyways. You can do it after you filed for divorce. You can do it before you file the divorce case. So you already have that taken care of. And that way you can have them personally served. All right, the last thing I was going to show you is, what if you do need a process server? Where would you find one? What we don't recommend you do is just doing a Google search, although you can do that, but you're just not going to know if they are a professional process server. There's all kinds of people out there doing different things. They do need to be licensed to do this, but some are better at what they do than others. Some know how to fill out the proof of service better than others. Some people don't understand how it works with the family law and the service by I'm sorry, not service by publication, but how to do the declaration of due diligence and so forth. So napps.org, whenever we have people that ask us, do you do process serving or do you know a process server? What we say is go to napps.org and you just enter your zip code. I would actually not your zip code, but the zip code in where your spouse resides, and it'll give you a list of professional process servers in that area that you can utilize and get quotes from. And you might want to call different people, get different prices, look at their reviews and that sort of thing. But this can narrow your search down to a local area to make it easier to find. So just in recapping, best way is notice of acknowledgement. Proof doing the personal service is another one. We talked about posting and publication quite a bit as a last resort. And same goes for the declaration of due diligence and subserving another person. So I hope this was helpful in going over the different ways of filing for divorce and having those documents served. Again, Tim Blankenship with divorce661.com, helping folks going through amicable divorce anywhere in California. If you do need our assistance at any point in the process, we'd be happy to help. Take care and have a great day.